Hi, I'm Katie Green.
Hi, I'm Dan Green, and welcome back to the Greening Out podcast. Now, today we're going to be talking about the non-aggression principle, and joining us to do this is Mike Cuneo. And Mike is the host of the Non-Aggression podcast and the founder of the 412 Libertarian blog. Mike, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks guys, happy to be here.
Awesome. So Mike, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your background?
My name is Mike Cuneo. Like you said, I'm the host of the Non-Aggression podcast, napodcast.com, and the 412 Libertarian blog, 412libertarian.com. I started both sites about 2 to 3 months ago, and I've just been trying to build them up, trying to spread the message of non-aggression, and obviously it's reached you guys over in the UK, so that's a good thing. I've just been... back in 2008 is kind of whenever I really started thinking about these things, when Ron Paul made his presidential run here in the U.S., kind of started reading his stuff and got hooked into Mises and Rothbard and, Walter Block, Stephan Kinsella, guys like that I talk to pretty regularly. So I think about this stuff all the time, and I think it's really important, and we should take it seriously for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, no, absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. And that's why we wanted to do this about the non-aggression principle. Now, just for any of our listeners who aren't so, who don't know what we're talking about, just in case, we don't like to assume anything in this show, I'm going to give a quick definition of what the non-aggression principle is from Mises.org. And basically, the non-aggression principle is an ethical stance which asserts that aggression is inherently illegitimate. Aggression is defined as the initiation of physical force against persons or property, the threat of such, or fraud upon persons or their property. Now, in contrast to pacifism, the non-aggression principle does not preclude violent self-defense. The principle is a deontological or rule-based ethical stance. Mike, what is it that kind of drew you to the non-aggression principle? Because personally, for me, I used to... Well, I didn't really have a kind of stance either way before when I was younger, and then I kind of got into a lot of different stuff, a lot of Buddhist things and stuff, and I heard a lot about pacifism, but personally to me, I thought, well, I don't like war, like I knew I didn't like that, I knew that was wrong, and initiating violence, but then also thought that pacifism, that didn't seem to work to me either, because I just thought, well, what happens if someone just runs roughshod over you, or they can do whatever they like to, and you're supposed to just sit there. So when I personally found the non-aggression principle, that's what I thought. Well, this is something that actually is in the middle and makes sense to me. But I don't know what your experience was.
I never really thought about it much in terms of pacifism. I'm not really a violent or aggressive person myself. I'm more of like a self-defensive. I try to stay out of people's business, stay out of their way. The way I kind of arrived at it, I guess, was I read a lot of Murray Rothbard, especially For a New Liberty, which kind of defined anarcho-capitalism, which is based on non-aggression principle. Did a lot of, and then I just did a lot of reading from there. I mean, I like I said, I like to read Stephan Kinsella, Walter Block, two guests I think you've had before recently. They're great. I mean, unfortunately, Rothbard has passed on, I think about 20 years ago now, and it's a shame that he's passed on, but his work kind of laid the framework for what those two guys did, and they kind of have led me to my work. So it's kind of like not a passing of the torch, but it's kind of we help each other and we bounce ideas off of each other, and that's kind of how I approach it. Rothbard's For a New Liberty, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's really just the only thing you need to read to understand this stuff, but once you read it, you'll kind of be curious and move on. So
Oh no, I totally agree, because when I read For a New Liberty, it sort of changed things for me in a big way. And it's funny because the way I think about it is like, we were talking about Walter Block, and when you ask him about it, he kind of says, it's basically what you learn as a child, keeping your mitts to yourself. And I've always kind of thought that everyone sort of, I think, inherently feels this. Like a lot of people, obviously not everyone, right? I'm not trying to generalize everyone, but I think most people inherently feel like that, like they don't want to, aggress against anyone, but they, if someone comes up and punches them in the street, they're not just going to stand there. So that's what I always think, that most people feel this, but maybe they don't have the sort of grammar, they don't understand that there's a kind of, framework, a kind of philosophical framework behind it.
Yeah, I mean, most people live this way, like you say, all the time, and they live this way just because it's the best way to live. I mean, you don't do business in a private sector by forcing somebody to buy your product. You offer it, and if they don't buy it, then they don't buy it. But I think the mistake a lot of people make is they make exceptions for non-aggression for government agents, whenever
Mhm.
they force you to pay taxes, for police officers, for the military. I mean, taxes, the military and the police are I would say three of the biggest problems. I mean, if we got rid of those, if we got rid of taxes, it would really restrict the state's ability to do anything. I mean, they would have
Mhm.
to inflate money to pay for anything. And then the police and the military are just have this high stature, especially here in the U.S. It's kind of diminishing a bit with some things that have been happening in the U.S. with the police, but the military is still pretty revered over here, and I can't see why. I mean, they're very aggressive. They cost us a lot of money, and they really put us at risk. I mean, as Ron Paul says, the only reason that terrorists or ISIS or anybody is over here is because we're over there.
Oh,
So I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
we kind of provoke things, and then we can't be surprised when it comes back to bite us.
Oh, no, absolutely, because I always think this preemptive stuff is just, well, it's a nonsense, and obviously, as people who live in the UK, that we are bound up in all these ridiculous wars as well. But like what you say, like, yeah, I totally agree because I see when I say to them, we shouldn't have a government, does it make sense? And then they look at you as if you've just walked off a spaceship. But the fact of the matter is, see if we're being, philosophically honest and we're getting back to, first principles, if we're going there, and it's as simple as, is violence wrong? Most people will
Well,
say yes. Is
I
coercion
mean,
wrong? Yes. Stealing wrong?
yeah, I mean, the government has people tricked through the school system and through the media, a lot of media outlets. They have people tricked into thinking that, what would things be like without the government?
Yeah.
It's kind of a straw man argument. It doesn't really matter, but the fact is they have people tricked into thinking that if we take away the government, things would be terrible. But it's not true. I mean, even if it was true, it still wouldn't justify what they do. But it's not
Mhm.
true anyway. I mean, if we take the government away from providing roads and national defense and everything, things would actually be better. It would be cheaper, safer, and just overall a better experience. And they really have people tricked, but that's why the internet's so important. I think I would agree with a lot of people on this one. The internet's just such an important tool because it undermines their media control. It undermines the school system. It exposes the police and the military for what they really are. And it
Yeah.
also spreads the ideas that are already out there, like your podcast, my podcast, Rothbard's books. All this stuff's available for free,
Yeah.
whereas 20 years ago, none of it would be available. So I think we're on the verge of hopefully an explosion in libertarian thinking, but it may take a crisis to get us there. We'll find out, I guess.
Well, yeah, it's really interesting that you're saying that because one of the things I was talking to my dad about recently was, I was telling him about my philosophies and my beliefs and what I think. And what happened was he was like, yeah, but when I was young, my friends and I also thought that we were going to change the world. I said, ah, yes, but that was the 70s. That was not now. I mean, with this, I think we're living in a time where a revolution is definitely possible, far more possible than it would have been at that time.
I would agree. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that economics is what's going to dictate it. I
Yeah.
mean, if the dollar would happen to collapse or if gold soars or if the government's running out of money, it's really going to cause people to question everything
Mhm.
because people don't question things until it hits them. So, I mean, if you don't have a job, it might be bad, but if the government's paying you welfare payments,
Hmm.
then it's not that big of a deal. You can still afford to pay your cell phone bill, pay your cable bill, but once the money stops,
Yeah.
the purchasing power declines. That's really going to set off, I think, a chain reaction. And the banking system here in the U.S. and throughout the world it's more unstable than ever. I mean, I don't know if you want to get into that, but that's going to cause some problems down the
Yeah.
road.
Oh yeah, big time. I mean, that's something actually. I know we're getting off on tangents already, but you know what? Screw it. Who cares? Yeah, because the banking system thing has been a big thing for us. Because there was this. Obviously, I'm sure you've heard about it. The whole world has the Scottish independence referendum, and that was one of the things that really We did vote yes, but one of the things that really got my goat about it was the fact that they were saying, oh, but we'll just keep the pound. And I'm trying to scream to people, no, we don't want the pound, we don't want the Bank of England, we want to get away from this. We're talking about independence here, for God's sake. Let's start our own currency backed by gold. And that just, oh man, I can't even tell you
Yeah,
the frustration.
I hear you. Yeah, I did hear about the election there. I mean, honestly, I didn't really pay too close of attention partly because it's far away from me, but also because I knew that the powers that be wouldn't let the result, even if the vote went against them, they would do everything they could to, not let it go through the way that it wanted. Like you said, even if there was independence voted for, they still would have kept the pound, they still would have kept the wars going on. So it wouldn't have been
EU
true
as well.
independence. Right, it wouldn't have been true independence, but it would have been better than what you had probably. So I don't really blame you for voting that way, but it wouldn't have really been true independence.
No,
so
it wasn't.
I kind of disregarded that whole conversation, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't blame you. But let's attempt to get back on topic. We'll make an attempt at it. So we're talking about the non-aggression principle. Now, a lot of let's put it this way, right? See, when someone asks me about libertarianism, right? If I say I'm a libertarian, and a lot of people in Scotland don't know what that is. So they say, what's a libertarian? I mean, the first things I come out with are the non-aggression principle and property rights. But a lot of libertarians, because libertarianism is a vast spectrum, but there is a lot of people who identify as libertarians who don't accept the non-aggression principle or think that there's no point in accepting it, or this kind of thing. What's your view on that?
I mean, I think it's one of the biggest problems that's plaguing libertarians today because, it's made me actually reconsider the name of my blog, 412 Libertarian blog, because libertarian is starting to get a bad connotation within libertarianism. Like like you said, there's a lot of people that call themselves libertarians, but then they support intellectual property. They support, some of them, I don't know, some of them probably support the military, central banking. They support all these things, and they don't put private property rights ahead of everything else. I mean, there's a sect of libertarians called geo-libertarians that I've dealt with around here. They think that you shouldn't be able to own land at all.
What?
So I mean, it really kind of is sad that libertarianism is being hijacked. I think partly by the powers that be again, or the big players in politics. It's being kind of the definition is just being broadened so it doesn't mean anything, and it's kind of a shame. You wonder if they're going to try to do the same with anarcho-capitalism, or I mean, I guess they can't redefine non-aggression, can they? But I guess they might try. They might
probably try. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing from Rothbard. I think it was in For a New Liberty where he said that liberals used to be small government here in the U.S. I'm not sure how it was over there, but now liberals are big government. So, the government itself, the government agents and politicians, they kind of change these words, and they kind of use the media and the school system and the debates and the elections to kind of dictate public opinion. And again, it gets back to why the internet's so important, that people on the internet can figure out that people like myself and you guys, we favor private property rights, and there's a big difference between us and somebody who calls himself a libertarian but doesn't favor the non-aggression principle. I mean, the non-aggression principle should be the only idea that a libertarian really embraces. Everything else kind of flows from that. So it's the most important thing by far.
Yeah, I think that's why I've been calling myself more of a voluntarist lately. Because when I say libertarian, people just ask me a lot of questions, but when I say voluntarist, they just usually ask one question. And I just say all action should be voluntary, and they go, well, yeah, duh. And I go, yeah, but you have to apply it to, like, everything.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, limited government is not, if a libertarian's in favor of limited government, that's not good. I mean, I'm not in favor of that. I mean, sure, it's better than what we have, but it's still really bad, and it still misses the point. I mean, we need to give them the radical option of no government. I mean, the choice isn't big government, small government, medium government, or limited. It's just, we should have no government at all. To me, limited government's just as bad on some levels as large government. So, yeah.
Oh, of course.
That's the thing. I mean, the idea of limited government, I mean, let's face it, it was tried in the US, and look at it now. For me, it's always just the nature of government is to expand, For example, you can look at so many different kinds of governments. The US is a great example, but there's even stuff like broader movements like the EU, which I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier. I mean, the EU started as a very small trading bloc, but now they've got a currency, and now it's just, I mean, see, when I tried to do the research to find out how many of our laws in the UK were made by the EU, the best estimates I could find from so many different sources were between 5 and 70%. So nobody even knows, how many of our laws they make. Because that's the thing. It's the nature of government, isn't it, just to grow and swell, surely?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the EU is a disaster. The euro is headed for collapse, just like every other fiat currency against gold.
Yeah.
But yeah, the euro or the EU is a disaster. I mean, just like all governments, the UN, the US, like you said, the US limited government is a joke. It doesn't work. The government can't keep itself in check. And on one hand, they're saying that people are basically too stupid to watch over themselves, but they're smart enough to put other people in charge of them. It's a contradiction, and the government is going to grow, like you say. It has to grow, because if it doesn't grow, then what's the point of being involved in government if you're not going to try to take more money and take more power? I mean, that's just human nature, and government people and statists often say that, well, human nature is that people take advantage of each other, they rip each other off, so we need a government to prevent that. But that's the exact reason we don't need a government, because they have all the power, they have all the guns, they have the control of the military, the ability to tax. We need to take that out of their hands and just eliminate it completely.
I think it's really funny you're saying that, because like the whole thing about it is it doesn't make any sense to me why people are so for it. I mean, I can understand people being kind of passive about it, like, yeah, I don't think I can do anything, and that's usually what I come across. I've yet to come across somebody who really fiercely defends their state. But it's interesting because, when I talk about my stance on this, and I say people are inherently good, people go, no, they're not, and I say, well, why do you put people in charge then? Why would you say that people are inherently bad and then put a group in charge?
I mean, it's hard to define. I mean, people in general are generally good, because if they weren't, we wouldn't have made it to this point in society.
Sure, yeah.
There are bad people out there. The problem is that the government draws them in like moths to the light. I mean, the worst of the worst come to work for the government, because that's where they have no consequences. They have unlimited power. They can expand. They can do whatever they want. That's the problem. We're giving the worst of the worst all the guns, all the power to police, to tax, and all those things.
One of the main sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. On you go.
Oh no, go ahead. I just said it's really bad. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say it's interesting. One of the most basic symptoms of being a psychopath is you love power. Loving power. I mean,
there's a lot of psychology behind it, and I mean, I think the government uses that against people. I think the main thing, like I said, is people are afraid of the alternative. They think that big business is going to rip them off. They think that somebody else, like a worse government, will take over. They think that the terrorists will get us. They think that they think that there's not enough gold to back a currency. They think that things like Bitcoin will never work, so how am I going to protect my money? They ignore history, though. In all these ways. I mean, the government doesn't protect you. The government's mass murdering people for hundreds and thousands of years. The government crushes currencies every time. The government violates rights. The government expands. They do all these things, and it's just the fear of the unknown. I mean, you can always make it seem like it's going to be worse. You can always say, well, the government might, the police might be bad, but think how bad it would be without the government. So that's kind of what they do. And you can always make that argument, and people will buy into it because they're conditioned mainly by the school system to accept it. It's just tradition too. People grew up with it, and it's like the saying goes, the only thing certain in life are death and taxes.
Sure.
It's really ingrained in society, and it's going to be tough to get rid of it, but I think we're making some headway, and hopefully we will.
I think so.
Amen. I agree. So, if we're going to go back to the NAP, we keep getting off. Sorry. We always do this in this show, man. We just got off in so many tangents, but it just happens. So, let me hit you with this, and I'm sure you've heard it before. You get these people and they come up with these smart arse sort of ideas about why the NAP should be abandoned. I'm sure you've heard a load of them. But let's go for an old classic, Mike, and just get your take on it. You've probably heard variations of this, but here's sort of my favourite one. you've gone to the woods for yourself for some weird solo camping trip, right? You've decided you're going to the woods yourself and you're hanging out. For some reason, all your food's gone or whatever, and you're practically starving, and you're ambling through the woods, and you get to a cabin. The cabin's locked and there's no one there. You know, do you break in and steal their food? That's something I hear all the time. People against it. What's your answer?
I mean, there's a few ways to approach it. I mean, first of all, just because a person takes an action doesn't invalidate the theory itself. So I mean, what's justified and what you should do in reality are two different things sometimes. I mean, if I'm starving, who knows how I'm going to act? Yeah, I might steal your food, but then would I be liable for repaying you? Then yes. I mean, those things aren't necessarily going to contradict each other. I mean, I did what I had to do to survive. It doesn't mean that you have the right to tax me every day. But the thing is, there's consequences for that. So yeah, if I break into the cabin in the woods, if somebody shoots me or attacks me, they would be justified. I mean, that's just how it is.
Sure.
These sort of things, the people that support the state like to trot out these like worst case scenarios or lifeboat scenarios.
Yeah.
And I mean, it misses the point. I mean, they try to make this argument that, well, if you do this one time, then it invalidates everything else you believe in. But it's not true. That's not what it's about. It's about what's justified. And no, you're not justified to break into the house without permission. Would I do it? Probably yes, I would, because who knows how they're going to act when they're starving. But again, I would expect to pay some kind of consequences. I would expect to pay restitution. I would expect to possibly be attacked if there were traps set up or if somebody was in there defending it. And, that's just the risk you take. But it's not really relevant to the non-aggression principle, that argument. I mean, I would agree with you guys that it's just a silly argument. And, if people are so worried about those kind of arguments, then they're missing the point of what non-aggression really is. I mean, it's there's no perfect, let's put it this way, there's no solution that's going to apply equally to everything and everybody's going to do the same thing. Certain people are going to violate the NAP even if society holds it as a standard. We're not saying that we're going to eliminate crimes, but we're saying we want to limit them as much as we can, and we need to impose penalties when violations occur. So, I mean, to summarize, I guess, again, would I take food from that cabin? Yes, I probably would. Does it make me justified in doing so? No, it doesn't. And I should pay a penalty, and I should expect possibly to even be attacked. But, they're two different things. So, yeah.
Well, that's it, yeah.
Well, yeah, I agree, because, like, I think that people that, throughout these lifeboat scenarios, because let's face it, it's when people attack the NAP, it's mostly lifeboat scenarios we get. And, how often does that actually happen, in real life? And the thing is, the way I look at it is, I think that people that are really, I don't understand why people like to, I've read so many different articles and watched videos of people, like trying to prove that it's, you can't follow this for this and that reason. I don't know why they're so hostile to it, because I don't know if they think that people like us follow it like it's some kind of religious belief, but that's not the case. It's like a framework, surely,
Yeah, I mean, well, no, I would say that you should follow it all the time. And the thing is, they try to use this argument, well, if you violate the NAP in that lifeboat scenario, then why can't we violate it other times? But like I said, that misses the point. There needs to be penalties for violating the NAP. That's the only thing that's important. So, yes, if somebody chooses to violate it, they may do a cost-benefit analysis and say, well, it's worth paying the restitution or risking my life to, violate somebody's rights because I'm going to die if I don't. That's a totally separate thing. There should always be a penalty and some kind of deterrent for violating rights according to the NAP. Yeah. Whether it's the person defending themselves with force, whether it's through the court system, whether it's through, negotiated settlements. There should always be a penalty or a deterrent against aggressive action. So me saying that I'm going to steal somebody's food from the cabin, yeah, I do violate the NIP in that case, but there should be a penalty as well. And I'm not saying for sure that I would do it. Maybe I wouldn't. But if somebody chooses to do it, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a hypocrite. I mean, it just means that they need to pay the penalty, pay the price. And, we need to keep non-aggression as the standard, of course, for all typical interactions. It should only be a last resort to take the trade-off of, hey, I'm going to violate the NAP only if my life's on the line or if it's an emergency, but also I have to pay the penalty too. That's what goes with it.
Well, yeah, and I totally agree. Have you ever heard the Stefan Molyneux podcast where he talked about the YAD?
I've heard some of Molyneux's stuff, but I haven't heard that one. What's the YED?
What he said was he was talking about people who constantly bring up stuff against the non-aggression principle. So like he was saying like, oh well, technically you could put your foot on someone else's property, and he could shoot you because you were trespassing. But if you were actually in court or something, they would say, well, YAD, you're a dick. Like technically you'd be justified under the non-aggression principle to shoot that person,
It doesn't make you good.
Yeah, but why would he? You know what I mean?
Right,
Like you'd just be a dick to do that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's another argument people use against the non-aggression principle, and I've actually written about this. I wrote an article or a post that basically said, yeah, you'd be justified in shooting somebody over stealing a paperclip from you, but it doesn't mean that. But it doesn't mean that you'd be, it doesn't mean that society would accept that as right. I mean, yeah, you'd be justified under the non-aggression principle, but it doesn't mean that people wouldn't exclude you socially or look down on you or anything like that. I mean, if somebody steals from you, you have every right to defend yourself. And I mean, if somebody's on your property without permission, you have every right to defend yourself, sure. But, in reality, is that going to happen? I mean, I would think not, because there are other consequences besides, the government stepping in or whatever. There are social consequences as well. So.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that kind of shows that to me, because people that really attack it with these lifeboat scenarios, they really are like, they're reaching quite far. It's always stuff that never would happen in real life, or if it did happen, it would happen, very, probably like 1 in a million or something, like there's the other one where it's like if you were in the desert, and this is one I've heard before and I just couldn't help but laughing when someone made this argument. It's like, and you're in the desert and you're basically going to die because you've got no water, and you come across a guy selling water and he tries to charge you $1 million for a bottle of water. What do? Do you just take it off him? And when people say stuff like that, you're like, are you fucking serious? Like with that,
Yeah, I mean, it's a joke. I mean, I think Stefan Kinsella alluded to this. He had a debate with Jan Helfeld, and he said, the issue here is Stefan Kinsella going to, basically it was the food example in the woods. Am I going to take somebody's food? That's irrelevant. The issue is, am I justified? And, you can't use this argument to invalidate the NAP. It just doesn't work, because it's just a totally separate argument. I mean, whether I would do something or not, that's not the issue. I mean, it doesn't matter if I run around stealing from everyone. It's not justified, and the non-aggression is still the standard that we should live by.
Mm-hmm. And do you think, Mike, I'm trying to figure out the way to word this question, and I don't think I'm doing a very good job, but how do you think is the best way that for us to educate people about NAP? I mean, it's the thing that Dan said earlier, and you've been saying it all along. It's a simple philosophy. The NAP, it's not complicated, but a lot of people kind of go, well, yeah, of course, keep your hands to yourself, don't hurt anybody. The majority of people will say that, but when it comes to things like government, they just have a wall goes up. They just don't understand. How do you think is the best way to maybe bring it up with people?
I mean, again, it comes back to the point of, everyone agrees with non-aggression in their personal life, or most people do, but it's the key thing that we need to highlight is we need to not make exceptions for government agents. We need to kind of expose the emperor as having no clothes, as the old saying goes, and we need to expose the police and taxes and politicians and the military, and we need to just not give them a free pass on non-aggression. Once that happens, I think people will come around. The way to do it, I mean, I think your podcast is a great way to do it. I hope mine is. Writing books, writing blogs, books, promoting sites on Facebook and Twitter like Mises.org.
Mm-hmm.
All these things are ways to do it. I think people are going to have to kind of come around on their own. It's hard. It's kind of hard to tell. I mean, my sites have kind of a limited following. I would think it's loyal, but I think it's limited. It doesn't really have mass appeal right now.
Yeah.
I'm kind of
try being in Scotland, man.
Whoa. I mean, I'm kind of taking the approach of, see how it goes, be cautiously optimistic. But I'm kind of trying to lay the groundwork for the future, as you guys might be
Of
doing,
course,
where,
yeah.
you know, if libertarianism takes off in Scotland or in the U.S. and really explodes, we'll be well positioned as a voice that's been there for months or years, depending on how long it takes.
Yeah.
And that'll give us credibility. I mean, we're kind of laying the foundation for future people that are going to maybe listen to this podcast in a year, maybe listen to your podcast in a year or whatever.
I hope, yeah.
We're kind of starting the ball rolling, and we do have followers. I'm sure you guys have listeners. You guys have had great guests.
Yeah.
I mean, we have an audience, but the thing is how to expand the audience.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to say. I mean, it may take a crisis, like I said, or it may just.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to do. I mean, people aren't really receptive to it. A lot of people are closed-minded to it. Until it affects them personally, I don't think it's going to be an issue, but you never know. I mean, the more police abuses, the more people are broke, the more people are seeing what's going on with the government, maybe the more people will pay attention. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, hopefully so. It's kind of funny as well, because when we started our podcast, it was sort of mostly people in the UK and stuff, but then over the last month, it's completely eclipsed. Like, now it's the US, and it's the US, then the UK, then Canada is our major listenership. So it's kind of funny how.
That's nice.
Yeah, how like it's mostly people in the US that listen to us. But it's interesting what you talk about spreading these ideas, because we were talking to Bill Bupert from zerogov.com. I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but he was talking about philosophical terraforming, as he calls it. You know what I mean? Like, as in putting these ideas out and then sort of letting them grow. And I think that's kind of what we're all trying to do. But I wanted to change gears a little bit, Mike, and I wanted to ask you this question, because it's come up quite a bit in sort of libertarian chat, and I won't mention names, but some people, libertarians, assert that, for example, we would be justified to start shooting police officers, because by extension, they are aggressing against us. Even if they haven't personally aggressed against us, we would be justified in shooting them because it wouldn't violate the NAP. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think I know who you're talking about, and I'll mention the name. I'll mention the name if you want me to. I know who you're talking about.
You can go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about Chris Cantwell, right? I mean,
yeah.
I've used.
Trying to be neutral, mate. Come on.
Yeah, I've done kind of a 180 on Cantwell. I used to be a huge fan.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I'm a little more measured. He's had some issues with his site too, where you can't access his site. He forgot to renew his domain and things like that, but. You know, Cantwell is okay. I mean, his articles are still valid. I still agree with most of what he says, if not everything. As far as the police, yeah, I mean, I would agree with him on this. I mean,
really?
It's the same thing, though. I mean, I think you are justified in using what some people would call preemptive force against police, because the police are a threat. I mean, if you don't obey the police when they pull you over for a traffic stop, they're going to kill you or throw you in jail. So, I mean, his argument basically is that, you know, the police are no different than a foreign army that occupy. You know, would you, let's say the Taliban or ISIS, let's say that you knew one of those members was here because they were wearing a uniform in this example, and, you know, would you wait for them to come to your house and shoot you? Or if you saw them out at the store or something, would you be justified in attacking them? I think you would be. I mean, based on what the organization does every day, they violate rights. I mean, I think you would be justified. Now, do I think it's smart to do? Do I think it's the right thing to do practically? No, I don't think we should be. I don't think we should be going out and shooting cops or getting into a shootout with cops, but only because it really wouldn't work, and it would actually tighten the state's grip against us.
Yeah.
I think Cantwell's argument is kind of, you know, if enough cops get shot or fear getting shot, then they'll stop showing up to work or they'll reconsider. Yeah, that part I disagree with, and that part I think it makes me kind of question a little bit his motives, because he may just be trying to draw people in. Now, as far as police, I don't know if you're familiar with this. Here in Pennsylvania and PA, maybe about 200 miles away from where I live, there was a police officer that was ambushed and killed by a shooter. It happened here in PA. Right. The reaction's been kind of what you'd expect. You know, they're doing a manhunt for this guy.
Oh, yeah.
But during the manhunt for this guy, they blocked people off from accessing their house. So there were elderly people that were unattended, dogs that were, you know, going to the bathroom everywhere,
Oh.
people separated from their families, and it's like they're violating all these rights to find
Yeah.
somebody that killed the cops, and it's not right, obviously.
No, it's not.
Well, see, I'll tell you, man, I've got no love for the police here either. Obviously, the police is a different beast here, but I absolutely have no love for them. However, I kind of think of it this way: if I walked down the street and I just shot a random police officer, I I can't see, obviously what he's a part of, but some people, they just don't understand what they're doing, to be fair. And that same guy that you might shoot, for example, because we don't have private police, which would be much better, but because we don't have them, I think that same guy that you might shoot just for walking down the street in his police uniform, he might jump in and help you when you're being attacked. Not that I'm defending the police, right? Don't get it wrong, but that's what I'm saying. I think unless they're personally aggressing against you, I don't think we can go out and start randomly shooting people, because that guy might be the kind of guy that if you just talk to him for a while and he actually consumed this material, he may understand what he's doing is wrong. That's kind of where I come from. In that.
I mean, he might, but I mean, I think you kind of miss the point a bit, because you say that in that situation you would be shooting somebody just for walking down the street wearing a police uniform. No,
Yeah.
that's not really true. The reason that that you would be in theory attacking or shooting that guy is because of the threat that he poses to you. Like say that he asks you to stop and give you your ID and you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know that he's gonna attack you and shoot you, so you are kind of preempting him, but it's also because he's a threat, and what he does for a living is he threatens people, he kidnaps people, he detains them.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's kind of where the argument comes from. It's not just, well, we think this guy is a bad guy, he treats his kids bad or whatever. No, it's that his job requires him to violate rights, and we're kind of trying to end the job in a way. Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I don't think we should be going around and doing this. I don't really think we should be endorsing it, but I would defend people that do that sort of thing just in principle, because they're really actually saving lives and saving rights violations from occurring, as Cantwell says. So he's right about that. I just don't think it's the right thing to do. So I'm kind of in the middle where Cantwell thinks it's the right thing to do, and we should probably we should probably do it.
Has he ever done it? Has he ever killed a cop?
No.
Well, no. I mean, no.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, it's obviously, as Campbell says, it doesn't make sense for him to do it, because he can't be part of the liberty movement anymore if he does that. And I don't think it's right. Like I said, I don't think it's the right thing to do strategically right now.
Of course, yeah.
But I mean, the police are dangerous. They're a threat, and I can't defend them. They all violate rights, and they're all gonna take no prisoners if you disobey them. So
I know
that's a problem. Yeah.
I think it just depends as well. Like Dan said, it's a different beast over here, And
Well, it is, and I have a lot of family in Ireland, and obviously, it's the whole thing and the troubles in Northern Ireland, and obviously the police there are just brutal.
Yeah.
But then it erupted in such like extreme violence over God knows how many decades, and you see that happening, and it doesn't seem to get anyone anywhere, like this whole violence thing. It's like, what's been funny about the Scottish independence referendum is, there's been no separatist violence whatsoever. There's been some violent clashes in like Glasgow city centre after the vote. There was people fighting with each other, but that's to be a couple
that's just Glasgow.
Yeah, that
Friday night.
That'll
That
happen anyway after a football
yeah.
match. That will happen anyway. But the fact of the matter is, like, what I'm saying is, that's like it's a whole different thing there. What we were doing, like now in Scotland, we have this kind of rise of the 45%. So that's the 45% that voted yes, for our American listeners who maybe didn't hear our last podcast. That's what the 45% is. It's a new movement of the people that voted yes who aren't obviously giving up and bringing that on. So that's why I think that I've just got this. It might be because of where I've grew up in the world, and my family being Irish and me being educated about all this stuff. And I just, when I hear like violence against the police and stuff, I like I said, I've got no love for the police and absolutely no time for them. I think they're status bastards. But the fact of the matter is, I kind of think that if we go down that violence road, we're just going to get back to where Ireland is, and it's not good. If you go to Northern Ireland and you see the walls and stuff, what they call a peace wall, I mean, Jesus Christ, that is not a peace wall. It's bad.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my stance on it to summarize is, would you be justified in shooting a random cop? Yes, I do think you would be, and I don't think you should be punished for that under the NAP. But do I think you should do it? No, I don't. I don't want to encourage anybody to do it. I want to actually discourage people from doing it right now because the response is not going to be good. You're going to be dead or in jail. The media is going to turn against you. They're going to use it to, defame the NAP. They're going to use it to clamp down. So don't do it. I'm not telling anybody to ever go do it.
Of course.
If somebody does it, like say somebody gets pulled over or somebody gets into an argument with a cop and they end up acting aggressively, or I guess it wouldn't be aggressively, but if they end up acting violently, I can't say they should be punished. I really can't. But I just want to emphasize, don't go shoot a cop. It's not smart.
It's okay, Mike.
It's okay.
We shouldn't do that. Yeah, but I mean,
we would never imply anything.
Right. No, I just want to mainly for any government agents that are listening or checking up on us,
agents.
right?
We assume they are.
Right.
IGCHQ.
So yeah.
No, I agree. And here's another interesting sort of take on it. I don't know if you ever listened to the School Sucks podcast, but they have had on Thaddeus Russell, who's a historian and a libertarian, but he's got very, very interesting views. And he was saying things like, you would be justified to, say, for example, steal from Walmart. And we have Walmart here in the form of Walmart own a big chain here called Asda. So we have Walmart too. He was saying you'd be justified in stealing or even blowing up. Well, I don't want to get too much into what he said. No way to speak for him, but things were alluded to that, you could kind of blow up a Walmart or whatever, or you could...
What was his argument in favor of stealing from Walmart? I don't get that. What's his argument? I've never heard of him, so what's his argument?
Well, the idea was this. Walmart wouldn't exist without the state. So corporations and stuff wouldn't exist without the state. His basic argument is that the state's guns back up Walmart. Because obviously we know corporations can't exist without tax breaks and things like that, and, land given to... corporations through lobbying and things like that. So basically he would view something like Walmart as he basically, just to make this clear, Thaddeus Russell completely rejects the NAP, but he thinks that like stealing from Walmart or blowing up a Walmart wouldn't be, if you were going to talk about it, wouldn't be going against it because it's part of the state, because it couldn't exist without the state. No corporation could.
Well, I disagree with that. I mean, I think companies could exist. They wouldn't exist in the same form. They wouldn't get special treatment.
Corporation, though.
I think corporations could still exist without a government, but they would be voluntarily accepted. I mean, I think Walmart could still, without the government, I think actually Walmart would probably be a lot more widely accepted. But the thing is, Walmart doesn't force you to go in the doors. So, I mean, there's no penalty.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's no penalty if you don't shop at Walmart, whereas the government relies on penalizing you for not listening to them or not doing something. So that's kind of where I draw the line there. I mean, I don't think Walmart's a branch of the government. And even if they were, you have a choice to avoid them. You can open your own store. It's not illegal to open a store or shop on Amazon.com or whatever. So there's plenty of options. I would kind of apply that argument more to like the government schools or government roads where you don't have much of a choice. Like my view is, I don't think it's wrong to litter on government streets or cheat in government schools for students because you're kind of forced to be there against your will. So that argument I can kind of justify, but at Walmart I don't think so.
Well, that's kind of what I thought, because I thought the people that work there voluntarily. I mean, maybe you could say they're economic pressures force them to work there or whatever, but people go in there voluntarily. So that's kind of my thing, like you're sort of trampling over people, voluntarily doing things, and that's kind of how I've thought about that. But it's interesting because I really think that I've had conversations with different people about this, and I think that, see, without the state, you wouldn't have these, I mean, companies would work, but it wouldn't be corporations as we know them, today, because these corporations that we have, these massive corporations, because I constantly, when I talk to people, and let's face it, most people are socialists here in Scotland, it's pretty difficult, but I say I'm a libertarian, I'm up for free markets, then they go, oh, well, you just want big corporations to take over and rule us, which is nonsense, because without the lobbying, the tax breaks, the regulations, the market would actually be allowed to work. The market is not allowed to work, and that's why you have these massive corporations, because the little guy, or anyone else wants to start a business, can't even get in the door.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's dangerous though to be against big corporations or against corporations that reach a certain size, because to me it doesn't matter in a free market if Walmart is the only store around town. That just means that they're satisfying customers. Would they have the same special advantages? No, they wouldn't
No.
have. I mean, the thing with the tax breaks though is that I actually think we should be happy that companies like Exxon, Walmart, and everything, they get tax breaks. We should be. The only problem is we shouldn't be pushing that. We're doing it the wrong way. Like, people are pushing for other companies to be taxed equally,
Hmm.
or Walmart to be taxed equally to other companies, smaller companies. No, we need to give the smaller companies the same advantages that Walmart gets,
Oh
which
yeah,
is
Yeah.
yeah.
no taxes. But I mean, I'm not against companies or corporations or anything in general, or companies of a certain size. I mean, as long as the state is out of the way, you can't have special government contracts and subsidies and things. Uh, I'm against that stuff, but I'm not really against, a $1 trillion company. I'm not against the idea of that, because it
Mm.
just means in a free market that you'd be supporting customers, you'd be providing them with value, and we shouldn't be against that. I think it's dangerous to be against that. It kind of gets us, uh, it kind of clouds our focus a little bit. I don't think we should be against corporations necessarily. We should be against the government, yes, but not corporations.
Mm.
Well, yeah, I'm not necessarily against corporations. It's just that, like, I just trying to explain to people that it's not that I'm abandoning government for corporations is the kind of thing. It's like it would be
Right,
so
right.
different. It's like you're trying to explain to people that people think we have a free market.
No,
You
we
know,
agree. I mean, the
yeah,
choice isn't you have to choose big corporations dictating your life or the
yeah.
government dictating your life. That's I agree with you. That's not the
Mhm.
choice. So yeah.
Yeah, and people think we have a free market, and it's so hilarious when people say, "Oh, you've got a free market, you can start a business or whatever." And when you try and actually explain to someone what a free market is, it's just
Yeah.
radically different from,
I mean, there's
you know.
yeah, there's no free market when you have taxes, when you have politicians, when you have fiat currencies, when you have regulations at all by the government,
Yeah.
when you have government courts, government schools, government roads. It's not a free market. So yeah.
No.
And absolutely, and that's the thing. It's like it's just funny when you bring this up, and people are just like, I mean, Waterblock said this to us, and I'm sure you've probably heard him say it many times. It's like you're against, government healthcare, you're against government schools, so suddenly you're against healthcare, and suddenly you're against education, and it's a
There are
complete
other ways of
nonsense.
doing it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's an absolute nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, I have heard him say that, and I've heard others say similar things, and it's a common thing, and that's what we were talking about earlier with educating people. Just because you're against the government providing national defense, for example, you're not
Yeah.
against the idea of defense. You're just against the idea of a nation and
Mhm.
against things like that. Just because you're against the government having banks control the banks doesn't mean you're against banks in
Yeah.
general. Just because you're against the government influencing corporations, you're not against corporations. So I think it's maybe a fine distinction to some people, but to me and you guys, it's obvious, and to most libertarians. But I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know what happens when you go to government schools. I escaped them, and
Did
I'm a
you?
libertarian. Well, I didn't escape them, but I'm saying I graduated high school and I went to some college, and
Oh yeah.
I'm a libertarian. I figured it out, and I guess some
Yeah.
people just get caught up in it and can't make their way out. So it's a shame.
Here's an interesting thought, and just to get this on you. I've heard different things, and some people say like, what is it that makes someone, a libertarian? And I've heard some people say, oh, well, some people are just born that way, and some people aren't. And I've heard some people say, like Walter Block said to us, that it was like some people just seem to have this genetic mutation, because he talks about sociobiology and how people are hardwired for socialism. Do you think it's just that some people are different, or do you think that? Oh, Walter Block said to me, like, if we thought that some people were born that way, then we would just give up and not do this. But do you think it's? Do you think we have? Do you think, like? I just want to get this right. Do you think with our current zeitgeist, it's like people are more kind of open to libertarianism now, because we're talking about the internet and stuff, and we
Like
can
are people
see.
predisposed at birth to be libertarians or socialists? Is that what you're
Oh yeah,
wondering?
like some
Yeah.
people assert that they are at first, but what I was going to expand to say now is, do you think that that's sort of changed in a way, because now, because you were talking about the internet and stuff, so do you think now with this information that that's not the case, that it's like, because we have this vast amount of information, it will be much easier to accelerate this movement as we go on.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it can grow exponentially under the right circumstances, but this is a really, really, really difficult situation to assess. I mean, when people are born, you've got, two parents that may or may not be getting along or whatever. They may, some may not even want the kid or however that works. Then you've also got things like religion, you've got economic background. So, I mean, some kids are born into wealthy families that don't get along. Some are born into religious families that get along well. Some are born into a certain school system. Technology is different in each era. So, I mean, it's really, really complicated. There's a lot of factors at work. I think some people are raised more to be socialist or statist.
I was.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we all were to an extent because of government schools, but I think that that's changing, and I think that, like I said, I think it has potential to exponentially grow just because the rights violations and the state is growing exponentially. So the more people that are affected by the state, the more people are going to be upset, dissatisfied. They may turn to the internet, and, to make a bold prediction, I would say that within 20 years, it's possible that governments worldwide start collapsing. It could even happen sooner. I mean, the U.S. government, I don't think it's beyond the realm to see the dollar take down the U.S. government, and people are going to be forced to educate themselves at that point. I mean, what are you going to do if the dollar's worthless, if the schools can't afford to open, if the banks are closed and everything? I mean, the internet is a powerful tool, and I think that's why they're monitoring it so closely. I think that's why they're trying to clamp down on it. I think it was in the UK or somewhere overseas where they're talking about if the one party wins the election, they're going to make you get approved to post on social media. Have you heard about that?
Oh,
Is this the Tories?
Oh, was that there is a thing coming through, the Conservative Party conference called what other parties are calling the Snoopers Charter, and what they're saying is, it will just be, what they consider terrorists and extremists.
Yeah.
But obviously then that could extend. Just now they're talking about Muslims.
It's
That's
basically
what they're
anybody
talking
that
about now.
rejects the state.
But it won't take long for them to expand that because it's their definition of terrorism or their definition of a threat. So we don't know what their definition's going to be when it applies to someone like us.
Well, I would say it already applies to someone like us. I mean, here in the U.S., the no-fly list has grown exponentially.
Oh, yeah.
The
crazy,
terror watch list. I mean, I'm almost 100% sure that I'm on one, and you're probably on one just because of what we talk about. It's not because we're. And the thing is, it's not because we're violent people or we're gonna be aggressive.
We're advocating non-violence.
Yeah.
I know.
But to them, it's a threat to them. So it's not about non-violence or violence. It's about, is this a threat to the state? Am I speaking the truth? Am I pointing out that the police, the military, the banks are all, we don't need them in the current form. We don't need taxes. If I'm pointing that out, then I'm a threat to them, and that's what they mean by threat. And then, of course, Muslims are going to be included just because, and, other so-called terrorists. Yeah, exactly.
Well, it used to be the communists. It was always, the communists are going to get us. But then once the Soviet Union collapsed, obviously in the late 80s, early 90s, and then it became, we need someone new to focus on. So now it became, the Muslims and all this thing, But
it's always something, or it's always somebody,
But obviously now what we've got is, CIA created.
I wonder what it'll be when our kids are older.
Yeah,
That's
like what the new threat will be what will happen at that point.
I mean, who knows? I mean, with the way technology is growing, it could be, humans versus robots or something. Who knows? I mean, aliens. I mean, you don't know what it's going to be, but you know that the government's always going to be trying to paint somebody as a villain. And what they'll probably do is they'll probably recycle some older things. Like once the older generations die off, they might bring back the Japanese as an enemy to the U.S. or they try to recycle things and try to trick us, but it's always the same scare tactics. It doesn't work on me or you, but it works on a lot of people, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that is interesting. Just on a slight tangent, when you mentioned the Japanese, because it's funny how people think that, like during the war, say World War II, that concentration camps, well, not concentration camps, that's the wrong phrase, labor camps, only happened in, say, Germany. But people don't really realize that the American government actually rounded up a lot of Japanese people and people of like Japanese descent and put them in camps during the war.
Did. I mean,
and that's not mentioned in mainstream history, funnily enough, but it's absolutely true.
I mean, not to get too far off base, but history is very poorly understood. I mean, people think People think
absolutely.
Abe Lincoln's a great president. It's
Oh
just not
God,
true.
no.
But
Yeah.
if I could, let me ask you something about the NAP. I'm not sure if you want to talk about this, but
Ah, go for it.
the one thing about the NAP is people think that taxes are not stealing, and that's kind of one thing that I guess you can address or I can. But
Hmm.
I kind of wanted to mention that people make the argument that taxes aren't stealing, and to me that's a huge argument against the NAP. Probably the most common one I've actually heard here in
Hmm.
the U.S. And
Hmm.
it's ridiculous. I mean, you're taking my money without my consent, and it doesn't matter what you're using it for. And it's definitely theft. It's definitely aggressive action, and we should
Hmm.
be against it. So if we're talking about the NAP, which is
Hmm.
what you want to talk about here,
Yeah.
I think that's one thing to keep in mind is that taxation definitely is theft,
Hmm.
and you should oppose it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying earlier. We were talking about first principles because if we accept that theft is wrong, and some people seem to think that tax is like it's like you're part of some social club, and you pay in and stuff like that. But that's not true. I mean, we even saw that with the Scottish independence referendum. A majority of young people voted yes, but a majority of older people voted no because I mean, let's face it, I'm not trying to be rude to anyone, but a lot of older people in this country seem to think that their pension money is like stored under the Bank of England in some kind of safe pension vault, as if that's a thing. But that is the thing. And I say to people, well, taxation's theft, and then, you get all the usual like, oh, but there's poor people and there's disabled people, and of course there's all these things. Absolutely. But when you say to someone, well, they go, well, how would you take care of the poor if there was no tax? How would you educate people? I'd say, well, I'd help them voluntarily, wouldn't you? And they say, yeah, I would. So then you go, well, why are we arguing? We both agree that we would take care of them and we would do a better job without the government doing it because let's face it, what did the government ever get right?
Yeah, I mean the thing is it ignores the fact of why or the question of why are the people poor in the first place. It's because of
Oh,
government
absolutely.
government policies and of course the fiat currencies and everything. But
You
the
get
thing is
more of what
even
you subsidize.
exactly, and I mean even if we wouldn't take care of the poor, that doesn't mean like you're saying that it's okay to violate my rights to take care of the poor. That's not I disagree with that. I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
even if I
yeah.
wouldn't take care of the poor or donate to charity,
It's none of their
it's
business.
still not right. And yeah, I mean, you
Yeah.
talked about the pensions. Here in the U.S., all 50 of the state pensions are underfunded. Some have 99% of the money, sitting there, but some of them are as low as I think 40%. One of the states is.
Hmm.
So the
Wow.
pensions here, the public pensions here, are really, really in bad shape. And again, people think it's the money's safe. It's really not. Like you said, it's really
No, no
not at
way.
all. Nope.
Not at all. I mean, they don't even realize. They think it's that they're sitting waiting for them, but it's just not true. And that's the problem. I think that's what we've kind of been talking about in a big way, that we have to get away from this kind of religious belief that the government are like our parents or something like that, and they're just going to look after us, and that is what prevails here. I mean, in Scotland, particularly, in the UK, pretty much, but in Scotland, very much so, it is incredibly left wing. That's why when I was talking to many kind of sort of American libertarians, I've talked to listeners and friends of the show, and I had to explain to them some like I said, I did vote yes to independence, but I had to explain that we have this issue that secession is a very distinctly left wing phenomenon in this part of the world, whereas like I talk to people who are involved with the Texas secession movements and people in New Hampshire. It's totally different here. I mean, there is a major overriding
Yeah.
left wing sort of socialist feeling here, which is it's bad, but we're starting to change it.
I hope so.
I
We're
mean,
doing our
we've
best.
got we've got that here too. I mean, a lot of people are against secession here. I mean, I wouldn't let any crazy headlines fool you into thinking, well, Texas is on the verge of seceding or New Hampshire,
Oh
the Free
no,
State Project. I
yeah,
mean,
aye,
not that
yeah,
you're gullible, but I'm saying the headlines may make it seem more likely than it is. I think
Of
here
course.
it's
yeah,
there's huge resistance to
yeah.
secession.
Even in Spain, there
Yeah.
is, we're in touch with people in Catalonia, and Madrid are blocking that, even though the Catalonian government have said we're going to do it, and now it's going to be locked into legal talks for months and months now, because Madrid are going to completely block it.
Yeah, I mean, I think secession's one way out. People, like I said, people may not have a choice. I mean, if the government collapses for whatever reason, whether it's, war or economic finance reasons, people may not have a choice. I mean, the government may not always be there to take care of you. So you better kind of prepare yourself now, don't depend on the government for healthcare, education, money, anything. I mean, it's a bad way to go about things, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. Um, Absolutely. I just couldn't agree more. Mike, we're starting to run into an hour here, so we're going to let you go. But thanks so much for coming on. We so appreciate it. Like, it's been great.
Yeah, thanks, guys. If I could, I'm working on a book actually, in addition to my
I was just going to
sites.
say, just
Yeah,
tell us, plug whatever you want, man. Tell
yeah,
us about it.
yeah. I
Let
mean,
our listeners know.
I've got my sites, napodcast.com, 412 numbers 412, and then libertarian.com. I've also got the domain privatizethe.com, and I'm working on a book about privatizing the roads, which Walter Block is going to write the forward for it. It's almost
Oh,
done. I'll
really? That's awesome.
definitely send you guys a link. It's the plan right now is to have it for a free download, and then if you want to buy the paperback, it'll be on Amazon and on the Kindle. I've also got ideas for privatizing defense, the law,
Hmm.
money, schools. So I'm working on a few books here coming up.
That's
This
awesome.
this one will be my first book, and I'm trying to keep up with the podcast and the blog. So
Yeah.
that's where you can find me. I mean, I would encourage you people though, before you read me, I don't want to steer you away, but read Rothbard first. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, we always say that. Yeah.
get a solid foundation in Rothbard, and then kind of come back to me later for, I guess, current applications of what
Yeah.
Rothbard said. But I mean, really everything I say is kind of based on Rothbard,
Mhm.
who's based a lot on Mises. So I mean, it kind of follows the chain back to them.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, 'cause
But
we
yeah,
could we could go way back, but that's what we intend to do, isn't it? We kind of we build on each other, that kind of way. And you're absolutely right because Rothbard is the person to read. I always said that for a new liberty, that is the thing to read. If you if you don't understand what this is all about, don't argue. Read for a new liberty and then talk to me. You know?
yeah. I mean, it may change your life. And I mean, the thing
Yeah.
is, the whole point, I guess, of this episode of the podcast is to prove that what would happen without the state or whatever, like the
yeah,
non-aggression principle.
Yeah.
Well, how would it work? The answer is it doesn't matter how it would work. We need to stick to non-aggression,
Yeah.
and that's the most important thing. And it doesn't matter how it would work because the current system doesn't work anyway, and the
Absolutely.
current system will never work because it violates rights to achieve whatever it does. So the answer to who would build the roads or how would the national defense work, it doesn't really matter.
Mm.
But a lot of these books I'm trying to write are going to make the case that yes, it would work. It would be cheaper, it would be better, but in the end, it really doesn't matter. We need to just focus on non-aggression,
Mm.
and that's what society should be focused on, number one above all.
that's really awesome. And when you finish your book, maybe we could have you on to talk about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, like I said, I was kind of shooting to have a rough draft done now, and I kind of do. I've got, I'd say probably about 200 pages or so done. I'm kind of still adding to it, getting my citations done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna self-publish it as well, so I'm kind of learning as far as that goes. But it's all gonna be done by me. I'm gonna design the cover. I'm gonna write everything except for the foreword that Walter Block's agreed to write for me.
That's
Sweet.
awesome. That's
Other than
really
that,
cool.
yeah, other than that, it's all gonna be me. I'm gonna design the website and I'm gonna put it up on Amazon. So I'll definitely let you guys know, and I'll be happy to come on whenever you guys want me on. But definitely when the book comes out, I'll come on for sure.
That's awesome. So, for more libertarian podcast writings and news, go to greeningetpodcast.co.uk.
And Mike, thank you so much for coming on. We really enjoyed it.
Hey, you're welcome, guys. Have a great weekend. I appreciate it. Talk to you again soon. All right.
Yeah.